thank you all for being here. We really appreciate your time on this Wednesday morning. Um, I know things have been very busy, I'm sure for all of you lately, but we wanted to take this time to talk about a really great opportunity for our local Rochester employer partners. And this is the opportunity of utilizing micro-internships to really revolutionize your future workforce and your hiring pool. And so we have partnered with Parker Dewey for a while now and really believe in the power of micro-internships to help out with projects small and large moving forward and help with your future career workforce and your future hiring pool. So I am so excited to have you all here. We are happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I'm going to hand things over to Kristen, and then I'm sure we'll be happy to hang out after to answer any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrea. And thank you, everyone who's joined us today. Already see a great question in the chat, so I'll go ahead and answer that. If you are a student or if you are a company, micro-internships are relevant. This presentation is designed for companies, or if you are an academic institution, perhaps you're interested in thinking about or learning more about micro-internships, stick around. This is definitely the intended audience. But Rhea, to answer your question about the student piece, happy to talk offline because we definitely do sessions like this to help with students as well. So without any other ado, I'll go ahead and put my email in the chat in case that is helpful for you to hear more about things from the student side. So again, welcome. And Andrea, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Kristen Schrader. I lead the partnerships team here at Parker Dewey, which essentially means I have the opportunity to collaborate with academic institutions such as your local colleges and universities, post-secondary institutions around Rochester, across the state, and even nationwide. But then I also get to collaborate and work with amazing nonprofit organizations like the Greater Rochester Chamber and other entities nationwide who are thinking about how do we best support the early career talent, whether you are an academic institution thinking about it from how do I help my students get these amazing jobs, or maybe you are a business trying to figure out how do I recruit the next, as Andrea said so eloquently, the next generation of your workforce. No matter these different stakeholders, that is what we're here and excited to talk to you about. Our concept is this micro-internship. Now, don't worry if that's a new phrase for you. We're going to start there and talk about what that is, but we'll also talk a little bit about why they work and how. How can you get started? How can you implement this, whether it be for just one singular project, or if you're thinking about maybe doing this more at scale. We'll talk about several different models and options. Now, yes, from a housekeeping standpoint, we'll record today's conversation. Happy to answer questions offline as well. So I put my email address in the chat already, but don't be a stranger. If you think of a question during the webinar, I'll do my best to answer it as close to real time as possible. But that being said, though, I have a question for everyone who's joined us today. Very simple question, but thinking about you, if you work for an organization, what hiring challenges are you trying to solve right now? And it's multiple choice. Feel free to answer as few or many of these options that are relevant. I'll stop talking for a moment, though, and let you answer this key question. Again, if you just joined us, we've got a simple little poll question to help us get the conversation going, which is what hiring challenge or challenges are you trying to solve right now? Maybe it's you have entry-level roles, internships that are open right now. Maybe you're looking at branding. How do I get more students to be aware of my organization? Maybe you're more targeted, trying to reach specific populations of students, and so on. I'll leave the poll up just in case folks haven't had a chance to fully answer it, but we will circle back to these specific use cases in the context of how micro-internships can help address these specific challenges. So stay tuned, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. So I want to give you just a little bit of background about Parker Dewey itself. That's the organization that I work for and that we're partnered with the Greater Rochester Chamber. So as you may notice on our logo, we have three key stakeholders. And so that Venn diagram stands for each one of these stakeholders. First and foremost, companies. Our primary mission is to help organizations access, engage, assess, and ultimately hire early career talent. To put that in a word, we're a recruiting tool. We want to help you identify the next generation, the next great hire for your team. Now, second stakeholder, again, is students. And so our method of doing this is through these micro-internships, which are short-term paid professional projects designed for early career talent. Students, recent graduates, folks who are returning to the workforce, folks who have maybe switched careers and are looking to build experiences in new avenues. So it's a broadly defined array of students at institutions nationwide. And that's, again, our second stakeholder, our students. And then our third is certainly our partners, such as the Greater Rochester Chamber, such as the academic institutions like the University of Rochester and many others in and around the area and the state. And so our mission is to connect you to these excited early career talented students to see who might be the next great member of your team. But by doing so is working through these projects that we call micro-internships. So what are those? Well, short-term, paid, and professional. Those are the kind of three cornerstones of our definition. These are designed to be on-demand projects. And so any and all of you, probably if you look at your desk and if it looks anything like mine, you probably have a lot of things on your to-do list. Things that, and here's my to-do list, I'm old school, so I have the days list, which I'd love to say is gonna get done, but it probably won't. But those are things that come up all the time that there aren't enough hours in the day to do. What are some of those things that if you had an intern right now, you could delegate them to? What are those things that you have that come up year round? Well, that's the beauty of this. You don't have to wait for that summer intern if that's when you have interns at your organization. You can outsource that, delegate that to an eager college student and not have to worry about that particular project anymore. Now, these are designed to be projects, so specific deliverable, not replacing a part-time or certainly a full-time employee, but project-based. Typically, the projects are between 10 to 40 hours in total. They could be longer or shorter, but most tend to fall in that 10 to 40 hour range. And that's work that the student is doing for you, not that you're having to do. And then the on-demand nature and our goal of trying to make this easier and our way of implementing that is that we take care of the admin. The students are on our books. You set the project timeline, you set the project deliverables, you choose how much the student's going to make. We take care of the rest. You pick the student that you want to work with. You'll see the candidate pool and you can pick the student or students who are best qualified to get that particular work done. Now, the project itself are all fixed fee engagements. We recommend that you budget around $20 per estimated hour of work so that it is something that the student can complete and that it's compensated in a way that's going to incentivize them to put their best foot forward. Other piece too, and to the question that came up in the chat, if you only do unpaid internships, we recognize that that is the reality for many, many organizations. But we have also heard from many of these organizations that the starting price point for an intern is oftentimes too high. When you're thinking about something for a full summer for hundreds of hours or whatever, the micro internship might be something that's more budget friendly and certainly more flexible for organizations to fit into their schedule. We only do projects that are the students where the students are going to get paid. Why? Just fundamentally, we just think that's the most fair. Fair for the student, fair for you and the work that you're doing because they're doing real work. And this is making sure that they're getting that that fair compensation. This also allows you to engage populations of students that are quite diverse, eclectic, that may be able to work with you on a project that may not be able to do an unpaid internship. So it's diversifying the pool of talent that you have available and accessible to you. And again, a lot of companies find that that's a real win for the model as well. And again, we keep it simple because we're handling all that administration. The last cornerstone of our model is that these must be professional projects, not go walk my dogs, even though they really need it. So thank you if someone could do that for me, or babysit my kids, but it's working on professional real tasks that are similar to what a student would do during that summer internship, but that again, you can do year round. So to get started, again, 3 simple, easy steps. First and foremost, figure out what that project might be. You get it posted, you pick the student that you want to work with, and the work gets done for you. So 3 real simple steps. And part of the reason why it is so simple is that we're there supporting you behind the scenes with every step of that process. So for example, we have an eclectic mix of project templates that can give you some ideas to get started. And I'll go ahead and put this in the chat as well, just in case you want to dig into this at your leisure. But they're organized based on what business department you might find that project to be in. So is it a finance project? Is it a sales project? Is it more of a marketing project? This is not to say that these are the only functional areas that you can do these projects in. For example, we'll see a project like data cleanup, and it'll be applicable across, you name the industry, education, healthcare, operations type of logistics, etc. We see operations, cyber, again, full gamut. And so you pick whatever project area you'd like, or you can just start with the most popular options and see some samples. Maybe you need some social media content to be created. Maybe it's an article that needs to be written. It could be a blog article. It could be something that's far more advanced for a more sophisticated audience outside of public interest, more research-based, for instance, website update, etc. So whatever one of these projects, if any of these sound like something that's on your to-do list, great. You can pick this post now and click on that particular project. And once you have a Parker Dewey account, which is free to create and there's no cost to post a project, that project that you selected will pre-populate for you. And so this, again, gives you a starting point, but you can change any and all of this. Maybe the data cleanup is not for your operations department, it's for HR, for instance. Maybe you need the project to start before the end of this week, but you could give students a little bit more time, or maybe you need it to be done in less time. Again, you have the discretion to state whatever you'd like for this particular timeline. Same thing with the descriptions. The location you fill out based on where you are located. Why do we ask for this? Well, it helps coordinate logistics. And what we find is you might be located in Rochester, but the student who's the best fit for your job or the project might be in Arizona or Florida or Montana or anywhere. And so this helps you and that student to connect based on who is the best fit for your needs at that given time. Now, most micro-internships are executed remotely. However, if it does need to be on site, you can toggle this over and post it as an on-site experience as well. And then, of course, location becomes very important so that the student can see and know that they need to be in and around your area and have the transportation to be able to get there. Whenever possible, we do recommend that it be a remote project just because of it being easier for you and more accessible for students and for more students. But again, you can decide. From there, the price point will pre-populate. This is designed to be a starting point. So if maybe the data cleanup, for this example, maybe you don't have that much data that you need to work through, or maybe you'd like to have multiple students work on this particular project. You can always bump this up or down as your needs, the project's needs, and your budget demands. And so keep in mind, this is designed to be a fixed fee engagement. We do recommend $20 per estimated hour of work. So for this particular example, again, we'd recommend around $200 for a 10-hour project, but you can adjust this accordingly. What will happen though, if you start bumping it down too much, is you're going to have a little pop-up that will say, we recommend you increase the cost. Because again, we want your project to be fairly compensated and competitive with the standard rate of what interns are paid nowadays. Now, the amount you pay is 10% above that amount that the student receives. Why? Well, this covers Parker Dewey's costs of having the student on our books. So what the student receives of that $222 and some change is $200 of it. The $22 that we retain, again, covers our costs of administering the project. But that's the only out-of-pocket expense that we retain. And again, you aren't charged until you pick the student. There's no cost to posting that project. You also have full flexibility to pick however many students that you want for this project. So we've seen, for example, companies who have large amounts of data that they need students to work on really, really tight timeline. Great. You can pick and work with however many students that you'd like, and you'll see that total amount adjust accordingly. But again, you are only paid when you, or excuse me, you're only invoiced when you select a student, so that you can choose whatever works best for you once you see the talent pool of who's applied. One other core component of our model is that we want this to be, as I mentioned a few times already, we want this to be a great resource for you to recruit from. And so those students that you work with, if you find a student who's phenomenal and that would be a perfect fit for that next open role that you have on your team, that next intern, full-time employee, part-time, or whatever, fantastic. We don't want to get in the way of anything that would cause you to want to hire them, which is why there's no costs or fees if you do want to hire that student long-term. So do the project with them, see if it's a great fit, and then if it is, awesome, please hire them. We want that to be the way that you find the next great member of your team. A few other things that'll just to fill out the rest of the application. So you can, if you're looking for specific skills, you can identify them here. We'll see things like, oh, I need a student who knows a specific website platform or a CRM like HubSpot or Salesforce or whatever. Great, mention that here, or Power BI or Tableau or C++, all those different coding languages. Again, identify it here. So that way the right students will know that in advance and be able to apply if they do have those particular skills. Keep on scrolling down, and here's where you can identify target schools if you wish to do so. So maybe you were really focused on giving back to a local student. Great, you can identify and have this project just be visible to University of Rochester students. Or you can leave it open and see who applies if you wish. And you can always filter based on the students' schools. So you can identify students who are local or students who are nationwide. It's totally up to you. My recommendation is to leave it as open as possible, because that way you'll get a nice eclectic mix of students who may be from schools that aren't on your radar, that maybe you've never even heard of, and that who might be amazing. So, but again, you have that flexibility for every project to keep it as open or not as you wish. And then the last sections here is where you can ask a few questions for this particular student, for this particular project. And think of this as both the application, but it also serves for a lot of organizations as a written job interview. Because most of the time companies don't do interviews for micro-internships. Now you can, but we recommend, whenever possible, you don't need to, because these responses tend to illustrate quite a bit about the student and who is going to be a good fit for that project. And you could add additional questions or modify them as you see fit. There's always this "why should we select you" question, but you can add additional project-specific questions whenever you're ready. And then from there, you can save it if you want to refer back to it later, or if you're ready, you can click Post Now. And after the project's been reviewed, it'll be visible to the students who are excited to get started and to put to work what they're learning into the classroom, working on these real-world projects. And so just to go back to the PowerPoint here, I've left a few slides here just in case you want to share this with colleagues or refer in greater detail to the process. But once the project's been posted, you'll only see those students who have applied to that project. So you don't have to worry about filtering through thousands of applicants of students that may or may not be interested. You'll know they're interested because they're the ones that have applied to your project. And you'll be able to see their resume, their LinkedIn profile, whatever they've included in their profile, as well as those application responses, so that you can then see who has what you need, what you're looking for that project. And if you want to pick that student, or however many students you like, then you're off to the races. Because at that point, you and the student are immediately put in touch. You get their information, their name, their email address. They get your name and email address so that you can then schedule a kickoff conversation. We recommend that you do have a real-time meeting via Zoom, Teams, whatever works best for you all, to connect with the student, to go over the details of the project, to clarify timeline, to clarify what you need in terms of the final deliverable, how you want to communicate with each other, all of those logistical kinds of things. Don't worry, we send you and the student checklists of the things that you may want to discuss in that kickoff conversation. But then from there, It's up to you how much or little you want to interface with the students. What we find is that most micro internships don't really require a lot of back and forth with the student. I know in my experience, I've worked with a couple dozen micro interns over the years, and I usually will have these kickoff calls. And if I'm working with several micro interns, we'll try to schedule it all at once. Maybe it'll be recorded and we can send it out later, or you can just have that one-on-one conversation. And then from there, typically it's just another few back and forth via email, just to make sure that the students' questions are answered. Some organizations choose to meet with the students again, depends on the project, depends on what you need, and it's really up to you. But we find that the students do a phenomenal job, as evidenced by the fact that over 98% of these projects are successfully completed. How and why? Well, these students are motivated. They're getting a great education from their academic institutions, and they want to put to work what they're learning in the classroom. And so this tends to go off very, very flawlessly. And in any sort of situations where, hey, I'm running into these hiccups, both you and the student have a liaison from our client success team who you can follow up with to answer and address any questions, concerns, or whatever that might be going on. So why does this work so well? Well, again, we find that this is how students want to engage with companies. They want to put to work what they're learning in the classroom. Those of you who may have been a student back in the day, I mean, think about how you sat through classes, but okay, how do I really know what I'm learning? This is a way to put it to a test, and a way that really is a lot lower of a cost, in that, if I do a project with a company I've never heard of, now I've got this great experience. Now I know that this is really what I want to do. And so this really helps for students to solidify their career aspirations, in addition to building their network, in addition to the payment and so on. But we also find this works really well for companies, because through one portal, you have access to students at thousands of academic institutions and thousands of academic programs across the country, just from one project. And this allows you to engage students from backgrounds that you may otherwise have missed. And we hear the students do a phenomenal job on these projects. When they're evaluated on the final deliverable, 97% of the students said the students met or exceeded their expectations. And again, we're finding that the companies who are using this at scale find that the students are far more likely to stay in their roles that they're hiring them for longer than that year or more after they've graduated. And why does it work so well? Well, a lot of it is, yes, it's meeting the demands and needs of that one-off project, but it's also allowing you to really assess those core skills that we all need, no matter what role we're hiring for. For example, just by simply applying to a project, you've learned quite a bit about these students. You've learned, for instance, they have attention to detail, that they take initiative, that they're interested in your organization. Things that, again, we all need and want, but now you know, because nobody is forcing them to apply to a micro internship. They're doing it because they want to work with you on this project. And then by working with them, you can see how well do they communicate? How coachable are they? If they got feedback from you, did they listen to the feedback? How did they respond? Did they have good teamwork? Did they turn the project in on time? Again, things that we all desperately need in our company, no matter the role, but really allows you to see this firsthand. And then, of course, the work product itself, we can gauge the quality of that final deliverable, but also be able to gauge things like, was it carefully edited? Did it have typos and things like that? Or was it really clear, professional, something that you could take to your boss and they would be blown away as well? We see that these short-term projects do a phenomenal job of allowing companies to assess these things. And all of this also feeds into some really powerful data, particularly for companies who aren't just doing one or two projects, but who are using micro-internships at scale. And that's what some of these graphs can illustrate, because we have organizations who are hosting hundreds of micro-internships across institutions nationwide, and really able to see some amazing data when it comes to some of those HR final deliverables. Things like the demographics of the students, the feedback that they're getting from hiring managers across their organization, and so on. And so it's, again, really, really powerful insights that we're sharing, and again, happy to talk more about at a later time. So how does this apply to you, though? And how can you get started if you are interested in doing this at scale? Well, first of all, it starts with a conversation. Our team would love to understand, and we'll talk with you one-on-one. what are your hiring challenges? What are the pain points that you're experiencing? If I look at the goal, for instance, or the initial poll, excuse me, many of you indicated, for instance, that you are interested in and have open roles right now. Okay, what are those open roles? But some of you also mentioned, I really want to grow my pipeline because maybe I have roles that I know are going to be open 6 months from now, a year from now, or whatever that hiring forecast might be. But by understanding your goals, will collaboratively help you construct a program that can allow you to work collaboratively and use these micro-internships to meet that goal. So for example, let's say you have an open role right now. Well, what we see with micro-internships is that you can choose projects that become a really great way to audition the student for that open role. So for example, maybe your open role is in sales. We've had companies that have said, okay, I want the project to be research one of my products, develop a sales pitch, and deliver that via Zoom. And this particular project, you can easily scale to hire 1, 5, 10, 20, 100 students, however many you want for that particular project. But it really allows you to engage a diverse array of students across a diverse array of institutions and engage, can they do this sales job? And to give you a specific example of a company who did just that, on our website, we have an organization called Smith & Nephew. They're a medical device company and who employed that exact project and model and engaged students from liberal arts majors, business majors, engineering majors, medical devices. You need some technical expertise as well as some of that business and communication acumen. And so they were able to engage this really diverse array of students across a bunch of different schools and specifically saying in their job description that this is for a full-time role. Don't apply unless you're interested in a full-time role beginning on X date, located in Memphis, Tennessee. And they engaged multiple students on that project, brought many of them on to become their rotational development sales trainees. And then those students, their cost per hire was 10% of what they usually see when they go to career fairs. So it was a very affordable and scalable model for them to fill that specific role that they were struggling to fill. Just to give you another example, we will help identify what those projects might be. So for instance, maybe the role is an entry-level data marketer. We'll help you dissect the job description to identify those projects. Don't worry, you don't have to figure that stuff out yourself. That's what our team is here and happy to help with. Maybe your hiring forecast, though, is a little bit further down the line. Maybe, for instance, you need help in 3 to 6 months. Well, that's where having a campus ambassador can become a fantastic micro-internship, one that we see regularly, where the student is a micro-intern, so they are on our books, we're taking care of the payment, but it's something where they can advocate for your organization. They can identify, for instance, what are the classes and do presentations on your behalf at these specific organizations and classes that just to spread the word about your company. They can go to student organizations and do the same. They can table across campus and do all these things to spread the word about your company. And again, we will help you with crafting that position description because we see this project happen many, many times over with lots of different companies. Or maybe your goal is really building that pipeline for not necessarily this summer, but the summer of 2026 or beyond. And that's where we see micro-internships work really well at engaging underclassmen, first-year students, second-year students. We see these companies post projects around identify best practices in AI for my target industry. Great research project that might help give your current team who doesn't have time to figure out all the latest things they should know about AI, have a student do the research, have a student identify the tools that maybe should be on your radar, and they can identify those things and pull together a comprehensive report for you, and you can have multiple students do that. Students that may not have thought about your company, but now are in your network, now are in your talent pipeline that you can nurture over the years, and again, hire them when they are ready for the internship their junior year or the full-time role after they graduate. And these programs that we develop, not designed to break the bank, these are very, very scalable models where you can identify how many students, your target schools or keep it as open as you wish. And again, our team will help and collaborate with you. This becomes a very effective method for engaging early career talent, particularly if we're looking at this as, okay, it's early February. Some of you may be heading to campus career fairs right now. Maybe you didn't meet quite some of the goals in the fall recruiting. This can help provide you with some of those kind of last minute hiring needs. If there's eggs, I know it's a very dynamic time, right, especially right now. This can provide you, again, a very scalable model for doing just that. And again, I'll leave this in there. You can refer to it, but this is designed to be something that can launch within a week. Most micro-internships are filled within 48 hours. So this is, again, designed to be something very, very quick to give you that just-in-time support. So going back to my initial question, just to give you a little bit more granular insights, the winning response from most of you about what hiring challenge you were trying to solve was this: I want to reach targeted talent and grow my pipeline. Well, for every one of those, we have some case studies and some tactical ideas. So for example, you might want to think about posting those research-based micro-internships that allow students to learn a little bit more about your industry, showcasing their research skills, showcasing their attention to detail, and then starting to engage them. Similar to that, identifying best practices in AI project that I mentioned earlier. That's just one example, but again, our team can help identify more. So where do we go from here? Well, again, starts with just simply posting that first micro-internship. And I'll go ahead and put an additional link in the chat that is customized for the Greater Rochester Chamber in case you want to look a little bit more in greater detail about any of this. And I'll put my email address in the chat one more time as well, as I'm more than happy to share more and talk offline. Do want to say again a big thank you to Andrea for bringing us all together, and to all of you who've joined us live today. And I see a question in the chat. I know I can stick around to answer any final questions, but Andrea, I'll leave you to sign off.
Absolutely. And I wanted to make kind of one more note that I know Kristen and I were talking about earlier, that I think might be really relevant to a lot of folks right now that might receive federal funding and might be unsure of what's going on with that with their company right now in terms of funding interns or what's happening. If you are concerned about maybe a stop in some of that funding coming your way, consider micro-internships as a way to maybe help support that work that you're unsure of how it's going to happen. I see this as a really good opportunity. Of course, it doesn't replace a full-time person or a full-time intern, but I do see this as a really, really great opportunity to help keep things afloat and keep some of those really important projects going for you. And I think this is a really, really great way to get your community involved in the work that you're doing. And so I'm so thankful for the work that Parker Dewey does. Again, I really believe in this. And I love the partnership that we have going. So thank you so much, Kristen, for doing this. And thank you all for attending.